Hello and welcome. My name is Dr. Gerard Toal, and this is the first of a few lectures on this book here, which was published in 2019, Network Propaganda, Manipulation, Disinformation and Radicalization in American Politics by Oxford University Press. And I've actually given you some disinformation because it was actually published in 2018. Now, the authors are associated with the centre, the Berkman-Klein Centre for the Internet and Society at Harvard University. I would suggest that you go look at the website to get some sense of the types of things that they're doing. You will note that the book, which is really a remarkable empirical study of US political discourse and US media, draws upon a very unique archive, a cloud, media cloud, which was created by them in a lab, and it allows them to do sophisticated quantitative visualizations of the ways in which people communicated about the 2016 elections. Now, they begin by talking about the epistemic crisis. And so what I want to do as an introduction to the book is to discuss this epistemic crisis in 5 words. Epistemic meaning, the theory of knowledge, a crisis of knowledge. First word, truthiness. Now, the word truthiness comes from Stephen Colbert, the satirist, who introduced it in the very first edition, actually, of his Stephen Colbert Report satirical show on Comedy Central in 2005. And it refers to a condition where something feels like it is true, even if it isn't true. So it is an emphasis on the ways in which affect and the ways in which feeling, emotion, sort of feeling in the gut overwhelms actual empirical connection to the scientific, to reality, to the verifiable. So it describes a larger discursive condition where truth is essentially partisan. And one of the jokes, of course, is that reality has a well-known liberal bias. And so what Colbert was trying to do was obviously satirize these conservative blowhards, but he also was really focused in on a key condition that we need to examine here, which is the ways in which this particular commitment to partisan versions of the truth, to what feels right, has left American political discourse in a very crippled state. Second word is echo chamber. Now, there's also a word filter bubbles, which is associated with this. And this refers to the particular architecture of social media, which creates what they call the daily me. It's an algorithmic driven news curation by social media platforms, particularly Facebook and Twitter, which remove the connections that people have to trustworthy websites and sources of news, and also to professionalism in journalism. So essentially, people are driven by virtue of their engagement with these media platforms and the particular likes that they're given. They're increasingly given news stories which they're likely to continue to like, and which affirm their already pre-consisting notions. So that's an architectural term, a media architecture term. The third one, conspiracism, which I've already discussed in a separate lecture, the creation of scandals around political opponents who become more than opponents, they become enemies, and they become, in certain instances, the epitome of evil. And they are, as a consequence of this sort of radicalization of political discourse, they are evicted from the polity. So it makes democratic politics increasingly difficult. And so this instance of the Benghazi hearings in Congress, you will note that all of the 4 victims, the Americans that died there in that very tragic incident, are white, and then the figures below are who represented the brave versus the cowards. This sort of binary logic is they're either women or African American. Then we have the Clinton emails, a sort of scandal that really had very, very flimsy empirical basis for it, and of course was blown out of all proportion. But that is part of the epistemic crisis here, is the inability to have a democratic debate in which certain facts are agreed and in which the political doesn't overwhelm our understanding of reality. The fourth phrase is the phrase fake news, which is actually quite recent. It's from 2016, from a Buzz News article, which they cite at the very beginning of the book here. And fake news refers to a propaganda platform. So it's a sort of a website, as well as a description of content. But it's really first and foremost about the platform. It is about the architecture rather than the content itself. So it's the cameras in this particular cartoon here. And so it's a condition where political discourse is saturated with lies, disinformation, and propaganda. And of course, the kind of exhibit number 1 is the very nearly tragic incident in Comet Pizza in our neighborhood just here in Washington, D.C., where a gunman went in allegedly seeking to uncover a pedophilia ring, which was purely an artifact of this conspiracy mongering and disinformation and truthiness of the political discourse that we live in. The fifth term that I want to highlight is a term that may be less familiar to some of you, and that is the term gaslighting. And this is, it is in technical terms, a form of psychological manipulation in which a person seeks to sow doubt, seeds of doubt in a targeted individual or members of a targeted group. So it's a systematic attack on truth, expertise, and science. It is something that we have covered in this course already, which is sort of doubt mongering and making doubt the product. But in this case, it is a systematic attack on those who are seeking to affirm a particular empirical reality. And it is coming at this from a particular partisan perspective. There's often a gendered dimension to this, and it relates back to the play, subsequent movie, which gets where we get the term gaslighting, the movie called Gaslight. So what does this leave us with? Well, it leaves us with what they begin with, which is the 2016 election results and the study of the media and what the media covered in this. And so this is a particular figure which underscores how sensationalism, scandal, and conspiracies drove the coverage of the 2016 election in the mainstream media. You will note that there's the words that are associated most with Hillary Clinton is email and the Clinton Foundation, Benghazi, whereas with Trump, at least it relates to his issues such as immigration and jobs. Now, there was a horse race quality to the coverage of this election in the mainstream media. The key point, however, is that this is a particular condition. It's a condition of epistemic crisis, because what it is that is truth, what it is that is knowledge, what it is that is the real, is contested and is subject to relentless political manipulation, spin, and propaganda. That's their starting point for this. It's not something that is new in American politics, but it's something that has a particularly acute form in the presidency of Donald Trump and the reactions that has produced. Okay, let me stop there and we'll move on to the second lecture.